Just some reaction there from Alberta's teachers union and opposition after the provincial government passed legislation using the notwithstanding clause to impose a new contract on striking teachers, ending their 3-week strike and forcing them back to classrooms by tomorrow. The notwithstanding clause is the sort of get out of charter free card that allows provinces to circumvent certain protections under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So what happens now? Dimitrios Nicolaides is Alberta's education minister, and he's with us live right now from Edmonton. Minister, a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for making the time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Minister, why does your government's failure to plan for population growth have to be rectified on the backs of teachers?
Well, I wouldn't characterize it as a government failure to plan for population growth. In 2023, our school divisions were working to close classrooms and close student spaces because our enrollment levels were simply not there. This was a province-wide issue, not simply a government challenge, but something that all of our school divisions were experiencing. We did, however, receive a historic amount of new Canadians flooding into the province that I know has put pressure on many other provinces. I know Premier Eby in British Columbia has recently talked about the significant challenges that his province has faced due to unchecked immigration. And so we are working as hard as we can, though, to build new schools, invest more in our education system to help contend with this incredible surge in population growth that we've seen. And just to put it into context, 2023 was the highest level of population increase that we've ever seen in our province's history. And so we're working as aggressively as we can, and we still have a lot more work to do, but we're tackling the issue head on.
The reason that I characterize it as a failure to plan is because I can think back to a time when your party was still in power under a previous premier, where a campaign was launched, for example, to increase net migration from other provinces. I can think back to January 2024 when Premier Smith, not Premier Kenney, said, let's have an aggressive target to double our population. People are going to want to come here and we have to embrace them. And we want to build this place out. My understanding is there's 91,000 new students in the system over the last 5 to 6 years. Only now is your government promising to build new capacity for them. Why is that the teacher's problem and not yours?
Well, it's not the teacher's problem at all. It is our problem. And we did announce a year ago an $8.6 billion commitment to build and renovate 130 schools. And yes, you're correct. We did have a strategy to encourage individuals from other provinces to move to Alberta and find a better future. This was not an international campaign, but even if it was, the provincial government does not control immigration levels. And as I mentioned a moment ago, other premiers, NDP Premier David Eby in British Columbia has raised significant concerns over federal immigration policies, and we're aligned with them in the thinking that there needs to be more of a sustained and thoughtful approach as to how we deal with immigration. That being said, it is our challenge to address, and we are addressing it head on. We'll be working to build and renovate 130 new schools. We're investing more into our classrooms. We're committed to hiring 3,000 more teachers and 1,500 new EAs, educational assistants, and we'll address those concerns head on.
I have to ask with great respect, who do you think would want to come work for your government? What teacher or EA, after what's unfolded in the last 24 hours, do you think would want to work for an employer that actively works to suppress their rights?
Well, we have one of the strongest education systems in the country. Our students in international PISA rankings continue to rank amongst the very top in Canada in reading, in writing, in math, and science, and the top internationally. We have a very strong education system. In addition, after our teachers receive the 17% increase that has been provided to them as part of the settlement, they will be the highest paid, have the highest take-home pay in Western Canada. So we are not just competitive, but leading the pack in so many regards and so many respects. And I think that's something that's quite enticing to many professionals.
Minister, again, with great respect, I take your point on the level of compensation, but I'm sure you understand from the teachers that you oversee that wasn't all that they cared about. You have essentially introduced, through using the notwithstanding clause, the ability for the government to override a teacher's right to strike. They feel, and they have conveyed this on multiple occasions, disrespected by your government. I ask again, what teacher would want, with great respect, to come work for you?
Well, as I mentioned, I think I provided some detail to that answer a moment ago. That being said, our teachers have been on strike for over 3 weeks, and we're not coming closer together in our positions. The latest proposal from the union leadership moved us $2 billion further apart. We then subsequently invited the Alberta Teachers Association to enhanced third-party mediation to help us resolve our differences, to help us bridge the divide and find a path forward. They outright refused to participate in enhanced mediation. So we don't have any other option here. Our students have been out of school for 3 weeks. There are clear studies that demonstrate that such closures and prolonged outages will negatively impact, it's not a question of if, but will negatively impact students academically, socially, and psychologically. As Minister of Education and Childcare, I cannot allow a circumstance to continue that hurts the well-being of children and our students. And so students must return to the classroom as quickly as possible. That's why our government has implemented this measure. Unfortunately, after 18 months of bargaining, we were moving further away, and a refusal to participate in mediation, we had very limited options left.
And look, I definitely, Minister, I'm a mom. I get what you're saying about kids not being in school and the desire of parents to want to see their kids back in school, the detrimental impact of not being in the classroom. But I will challenge you on the merits of the argument that you had no other choice. I looked on your website that details what what is available if the government is in a situation. This is from your government's own website. There are two mechanisms, one that has been used before, one that hasn't. The Disputes Inquiry Board, which would have allowed through a ministerial order, you didn't even need to be in the legislature, a minister to suspend the strike for at least 30 days, introduce a third party. It can be binding and not binding. Then there's the possibility of the Public Emergency Tribunal, which hasn't been used but could have been used again, that would have avoided introducing the notwithstanding clause and forcing a contract on teachers for a number of years. Why did you go to that option when you did have other options available?
Well, we carefully weighed all of the options, and you mentioned dispute inquiry board, but you mentioned as well a 30-day period associated to that. So we could have had students return to class for 30 days and be back out on strike and out of the school again. And so further disruption is not in our students' best interest. It's not in the interest of any child. And so we did look carefully at all of the options and, of course, weighed the pros and cons. And guided by what's best for students, we firmly believed that this was the right approach to ensure students return and remain in class where they belong, where they need to be. It's not just for their academic and social and emotional well-being, but of course, students from disadvantaged backgrounds or students who have other complex needs are not receiving the support that they need. For a student in kindergarten or grade 1 who has a complex need and requires the support of an EA or an occupational therapist, they're being pushed further and further behind. Every day this strike continues. We cannot allow that circumstance to continue. Students must return to their classroom, and I'm very happy that they'll be returning tomorrow.
But, Minister, again, with respect, in the course of the last 5 minutes, you went from saying you had no other options to, oh, well, you did have other options, but you just didn't want to pursue them because they weren't in the best interest of students. Are you sure you're doing what's in the best interest more largely of Albertans here? Did you really care most about students, or did you want to just bust this union?
The number one priority is and always will be the best interest of our students. As I've mentioned, there are number of different studies that demonstrate the significant harm that is caused to students by prolonged strikes. We cannot allow that circumstance to continue. And I mentioned that there were those other tools which we evaluated, but they were not viable options for us to consider, given the fact that the union had rejected mediation, given that their last proposal put us $2 billion further apart. We looked at the other options to explore whether they would be something that we could indeed implement it, and ultimately decided that would not be the most appropriate course, and have taken the steps that we have. And there's no question the primary consideration here is getting our students back into the classroom. That is the number one priority and is paramount to everything else.
What's your message to teachers, though, who go into that classroom tomorrow? What about their interests? Feeling dejected, feeling like their rights have been stripped, feeling as though you don't have respect for their profession. Do you think that creates the best environment for students?
I think we have to work together with our teachers to help find ways in which to improve conditions. We've seen a significant population increase, as I've noted, and that's not just come in terms of general student numbers, but also in terms of complexity. We've seen a 34% increase in the number of refugee students in the past 4 years, a significant number more students that speak English as an additional language. So our class sizes are growing, and they're also becoming more complex. And we want to work with our teachers to find solutions to help address these concerns. And my message to teachers is that we want to work with you to address these problems. We greatly value and respect the work that you do. We have to get our kids back in school, though, and we have to work together to find long-term, both immediate and long-term solutions to help address the issues that we're facing.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Minister, I sincerely appreciate your time this evening. Thank you so much.